In the beginning of 2020, you happened to start a gender sensitivity campaign called Project Sunshiners, which aimed at conducting gender awareness workshops in different schools in
Yes.
your hometown. The project happened successfully in one school and is waiting to take off as soon as the situation gets better.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I
That's
can't wait
amazing.
for everything, to get better. Uh, the first session happened very well, and I was not expecting such an amazing response from the kids, from the girls. It
Yeah.
happened at this girls' school. So the way they opened up eventually at the end of the workshop, and they became so comfortable and started sharing their own journeys and their stories. It was really amazing.
I'm glad. More power to you. So, where did this happen in Calcutta?
Yes. So, what happened, like sometime around last year, I somehow felt that let's do this. Let's start an awareness campaign rather than, just constantly discussing amongst our friends, family members, writing on social media, because a lot of things that that's been going on all over the world and for many, many years, it just doesn't happen like suddenly. It happens because of certain conditioning, the way people behave and the way people act, their actions. It's the reason behind this is like years of conditioning, lack of awareness, and this can only get better if people are taught the basic nuances of gender sensitivity, and the basic details and the basic awareness is being fed to them at an early age. So then it becomes very organic. It doesn't become forced. So as children, we have a lot of questions. As children, we are innocents. We are open to ideas. We adapt them faster than how we do as adults. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt that in schools, if we are taught certain things uh, in a very playful manner, then the awareness happens to us at the right age, you know. So this whole workshop was designed by me and this other friend of mine called Shankolita. She's a teacher. She was a teacher with Teach for India, and now she's working she's working a different sector now. So we planned this whole workshop keeping in mind that we can cover certain prominent aspects, you know, and in a very playful manner, not making it very preachy, not making it like, okay, write down your points, these are the things you should follow. So we created these games, exercises for children to so that they start questioning where do they stand as a gender, and what are the gender differences that we go through, and they somehow become normal, but they're not supposed to be normal. So it was really nice that, when I was also quite nervous when I was, conducting this workshop, because it's the first time I was going to be in front of so many school kids. I'm not a teacher, so how to handle them, how to, make them involved in this process. But eventually, they got so engrossed in all these exercises. After a point, I didn't have to tell them that you tell me is this right or wrong. They were like they had accepted. They somehow understood the bottom line, the of this whole workshop. So that is great. Like how children, they adapt things so fast, and you don't have to give them 500 reasons to make them understand that, gender discrimination is uncool, it's not right. They will understand very, very soon, like sooner than any of the adults around.
So, what was the age group that you were conducting this
So
workshop?
this workshop, I think it was class 8.
Mm-hmm.
So they had, like, you can say they had just hit their their age of puberty, or many of them, they have not also as of now. So like just the beginning of their teenage life. And we also talked about the whole idea of friendly touch and unfriendly touch. So this is also something very interesting, that I spoke to this other woman who's a teacher in Delhi, and she had done a gender sensitivity workshop in Delhi in certain schools, and she said that how she feels that the whole idea of good touch and bad touch, it becomes too black and white. It's not the right way to approach. The right way is friendly and unfriendly touch, and it's the children who should decide, that they are the ones who actually understand that which touch they like, or which touch they don't like. Yeah. So the moment we make it good and bad, we are putting them in a box. So we are that's a separate discussion altogether, and a lot of other questions also come into the picture the moment we say good and bad. But the ideal thing is, if we go deeper, it's actually being friendly and unfriendly. So I started with the whole discussion that, there are certain body parts which are always visible to the world, even if we are wearing covered clothes or not. Okay, like our arms, fingers, eyes, face, feet, these are visible. Okay, so but there are certain other body parts which are not visible, and they're absolutely private to us. And we usually feel that it's only us who have the right to touch them and do whatever we want, and not anyone else. Okay, but that doesn't mean that anyone else can also touch the visible body parts as well. Again, it's got to do with consent. We should, sometimes we like and sometimes we don't like. So immediately some of the children, they started saying, yes, Didi, this aunt of mine pulls my cheek, I don't like it. So I said, okay. Then someone slowly started saying that how they don't like when this uncle comes over and, really cuddles her. So I asked, what do you do? So she said, I run to my own room. So then I asked her that, so have you ever tried discussing it with your parents? So she immediately said that she has spoken to her mom, and whenever, he comes home, mom tries to protect her and tells the uncle that, she doesn't let her be. So the thing is, me giving them a solution that tell them do this, do that, it's not going to help them. It's them, they need to understand that this is something I don't like, and I need to speak out. I need to speak up and talk to my parents and the people around me, because everyone, I'm hoping, more or less, everyone has that one person who is there, who's there, who's like home. Like mostly it's our mothers, where we can go and talk about it. And also, of course, sometimes it's mother, father, both. And sometimes maybe we have our older sisters, brothers, or grandfather, someone who is our basically, that safety person, that safety button where we should where we can go and talk about it. And they all started talking about how they have that one person, and how they somehow for a long time stopped themselves from sharing these things, but now they have. Some of them even said that they haven't spoken, but this is the first time they're speaking up, and maybe they would like to talk to their parents. So this dialogue, this exchange of dialogue, I felt was very important, and it did make them feel like very refreshing. They looked that we have found some sort of a key, or some sort of a way to express ourselves, and not keep it within, keep it inside our, yeah.
So I think it's also very important to understand that even if children do by any sort of manipulation or any way consent, even under 18, then that itself is also abuse. I think it is very important to
Yeah.
make them understand that. So what would you suggest for people who don't have anybody at their homes as a safe space or a safe person? Because us
Yeah.
as an organization, we try to equip young adults. We
Hmm.
equip young adults via our Rakshan project to prevent child sexual abuse. We also teach about good
Yeah.
touch. What would you want? What would you want these children to do if they don't have anybody in their homes as a person they could trust?
Yeah. So with these students, what I understood that they do share a certain kind of bonding with their teachers in the school. And with these students in this particular school, what I felt that like they do have a certain kind of bonding with some of the teachers, the way they spoke and the way they were there, you know, with that whole attitude of being protective, because I was also an outsider. I had come to do a workshop about something very sensitive so that I don't cross my line. But then they were very open. In fact, they were a part of the workshop. So I also what I felt that if they are not being able to speak to someone at home, they should definitely try and speaking to some of their teachers. And another thing is, you know, I feel children, like, see, different children react differently. But mostly, if the teachers also take the responsibility of being friendly with them and sometimes intimate, like emotionally intimate. So you also give them that space of sharing. So it shouldn't be limited to just exchanging knowledge and making sure that they do their homeworks well. It's also, I think the teachers also have equal responsibilities of making sure that, you know, they're going to a safe space. If they cannot provide a solution, it's important for them to hear them out, or, like, you know, create an atmosphere, they feel that I am, when I'm in school, this person who is teaching us, she's the one who can listen to me. She can understand whether this is actually a problem or not. Because see, many a times as kids, uh, several times, some, like, many of us have been abused mildly, or like, you know, or very uh, at a very higher degree. It depends. But like, most of the times we haven't been able to identify that what is it. Like, after growing up, or after, like, you know, like several years of education and like conversations, we remember that incident and feel that that person's touch was not right.
Yeah.
Sometimes children understand very quickly, but it's very tricky for children to understand things so fast. Like, my mother used to tell me that if you ever feel that anyone touching you here, these parts, and if you don't like it, you please come and tell me, and don't let anyone touch you here and there, like, without your consent. So she told me all these things because of her own experiences, because of how her friends experience certain things. So similarly, because like, when she was young, there was a lack of awareness, and she was not being able to understand how to go and talk. So that's why she made sure that I have this awareness when, like, you know, though I'm a child, and I should like, she should give me that space and option to go to her and say that, you know, I don't like him touching me.
Absolutely. More power to you and your mom for doing this. And I think it's extremely important to make the children of this generation aware that what is happening to them is not correct. Because mostly we can't put the burden of such things on children because children are innocent. They mostly don't know what is happening around them. So it's very amazing how you are doing this and more power to you. So, what exactly is your plan of action as soon as the lockdown ends? How do you plan on expanding this to more schools or?
Yeah, so I collaborated with this organization called Class IQ. So what they do, there are a bunch of women who work in different government schools mostly. So they take these, you know, extra classes, I would say, though it's not a very ideal term to explain. They take these classes mostly during the weekends or during the middle of the week to basically make the whole process of education more engaging. So they organize these screening classes, like they screen some films. They have these quizzes based on certain important topics, and they do storytelling sessions. They do musical sessions. So it's exactly not what is there in the syllabus. They do slightly away from the syllabus, but also which I also feel that it's important that these things are also included as a part of our education. Yeah. So I kind of collaborated with them for this particular project, and the whole idea was, before starting this workshop, we had an orientation program with all these teachers, like myself, and with all these teachers, all these women who were from that organizations, who are interested in being a part of this particular campaign. So what exactly we are going to do, what games we are going to play, what discussions we are going to that's going to take place. So the initial plan was that because I live in Mumbai, and it's not possible for me to always come down and conduct these workshops, so that these women also carry on this process in several schools, so that we don't we can make this project larger, and it is not limited to just one class a month. It becomes one class a week, and in different schools, so that we can cover more classes and we can cover more schools and more children. So yeah, basically that was the plan. But then now with the pandemic and with the entire situation going haywire, now I can only wait when things will get fine, and I don't think that's happening before next year. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. It's great that you're doing this. And as an organization, even we faced a lot of such issues because we also conduct webinars, but amongst young adults, not kids. So we also
Yeah.
have been conducting all these webinars online on Zoom. So I totally understand the inconvenience that this pandemic has caused.
Yeah,
And
because I personally like the kind of workshop Project Sunshiners is all about.
Mhm.
I don't know how effective it will be doing it online, because
Kids.
there are certain exercises you cannot engage them online. Then it will be the whole point of doing all these games, making them play these games and exercises, so that they don't feel that they're listening to lectures, because they're children. They're going to get bored after a point of time. So one of the exercises was, I gave them certain situations and divided I asked them, whoever wants to act. So many of them, they were not ready to act. So some of them were ready to act. So say at least 20 girls, they wanted to act. So I divided those 20 girls into 4 groups, 5 each. No, 5 groups, sorry, 4 each. So the exercise was, I gave them different situations, and and they had to play the same. 2 of them had to play their own gender, and 2 of them had to play the opposite gender, like 2 boys
Okay.
and 2 girls. So
Mm-hmm.
now I wanted them to portray a regular situation in that particular zone. Say one was like a family dinner table, one was a hospital, one was a traffic jam, one was a marketplace, and something else. One was, I think it was an office space, a working office space. So the thing is, I didn't tell them that you have to make the woman empowering, or you have to make the guy be very chilled. Nothing. I didn't tell them anything. I said, just act like what you feel, like how a hospital scene, or it's going to be. And it's funny that their idea was, the doctor will be a guy and the nurse will be a woman. And in in the family, the father was pissed off with the food and he left, and the son also left, and the daughter couldn't say anything, and the mother was crying. So I didn't tell them all these things. Now I tried looking at the fact that they all come from very different socio-economic backgrounds. So everyone has a different lifestyle and they see different human relationships every day. So their idea of the role of a woman, the role of a man might not be the right idea. Hence, these workshops are important. When I asked them questions, I was like, why did you do this? They said that, but Didi, it's like this only. And, most of the time, I see these situations. So then the discussion happened. The whole point was, I tried to speak less. I tried to hear them. And slowly, when I asked them, but do you think this is right? So they said, no, it's not right. I said, then they were like, that should also work. I was like, exactly, everyone should do things together. Your mother is working at home and she's not earning money doesn't mean that it's a thankless job. She doesn't have a holiday and she doesn't get bonus during Durga Puja. Okay. So, in fact, you should be more respectful towards her and be grateful that, doesn't matter if she's sick or she's fit, she's always ready to be there for you guys and shouldn't take it for granted. So similarly, it's the same for your father. He doesn't always need to go out and work. And if someday he wants to rest and he wants to go to the kitchen, don't make a big deal that dad went to the kitchen. Wow, dad washed clothes. So it's like sharing responsibilities. So the thing is, those bright eyes after every discussion and exercise, I can never forget. And it only gives me hope that, if you feed them the right ideologies and you start these dialogues, these children will have very bright future, very sorted future. They'll be sorted in their heads. They will fight for their rights and they cannot be suppressed easily. So for these, these physical workshops are important, the physical contact and not with webinars.
Engaging children is a little difficult. Their attention span might not be intact if it's online.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's great.
And also another thing is the schools that we were approaching, as I said, they all come from very different socio-economic backgrounds. And for many of them, having a smartphone itself is a privilege. So holding a workshop, through the internet, I know quite a few, more than quite a few, they won't be able to have this access to attend a webinar. So another approach is that to conduct these workshops in different kind of schools, government schools, private schools, of course, provided the principal and the authorities are allowing us to do it. Okay. But the thing is, so that it doesn't matter, where you're coming from, your idea of gender sensitivity should be on point for their own benefits.
Absolutely. So, what prompted you to start this? Was it a personal experience or was it just a sudden realization, or how exactly did you come up with this idea?
So basically, as I was mentioning earlier, that when we open newspapers, cases of sexual assault, sexual harassment, the entire Me Too movement, a lot of things, the thing is, it's become so common that, you open the newspaper or you scroll through and you see, this girl gang raped, that person, raped, molested, this, that, everything. It's so regular. And the thing is, no matter how strict the punishment you make for, for the person accused and whoever does this crime, basically, why it keeps repeating? After so many dialogues, it's tiring for women. And I'm sure it's tiring for a lot of men also. They're worried. We all are worried when, if my sister is out or vice versa, if I am out, it's Like, why can't we live normally? because
Stigma,
because we
patriarchy.
because is it like if we actually impose a very like if it's like a strong punishment of on them, will it solve the problem? Can you really kill the rapist by killing the rapist? Like, can you kill his mind? Can you kill his thought that he wanted to rape someone? And people like the thing is, like in your own family, children are abused every now and then. Children, teenager, like marital rape is still not a crime in our country. So,
Yeah,
so the thing is, it's the mentality. It's the mentality that needs to be changed. And how do we change it? We have to start the dialogue at a very early age. The
absolutely.
the way we look at two genders in such a distinctive manner, that it's problematic. So the thing is, like, so that's why I felt that how long will I keep like writing on Facebook, I am tired, my blood is boiling, I'm angry. I understand people like social media, like, play a very important role like today. No, like even if people say like, keyboard activists and all that shit, but it has an impact. It
It
is very
does.
powerful, but the thing is, it also has its limitations. After a point, what exactly can you do? Okay. And so then I felt that how about I start my own bit? Yeah, I mean, like me playing powerful characters, powerful protagonists, that is there. That's a separate entity altogether. But the thing is, that is also not in my hand. As of now, I have got strong characters. Tomorrow, I might not get a strong character, but I'll have to work. I cannot keep waiting for that I'll get the next rebellious character, then only I will act. No, I am an actor, I will act. But
True.
what can I do as an individual in my own way? I am not like I don't have a lot of power, but whatever little power I have, whatever little contact source I have, if I can use them well, and maybe this is the way I can start. Because my mother is associated with this organization, Class IQ, I
Oh,
I have been able to get in touch with these schools, get in touch with these women, and conduct this, because it can get difficult that approaching a school and they might say that no, who are you? We are not interested. So so yeah, I like especially last year, the incident that happened in Hyderabad, it somehow like it really disturbed me. It's not that like whatever happened before, it didn't disturb me. It was like it had hit the tip of the iceberg, and I saw many women, they were so angry. They wrote that the like the accused men, they should be ripped apart, they should be killed, they should be castrated. And I felt that, will that solve the problem? I know there is a lot of anger and it's only normal to feel angry, but will it solve the problem? So it's so deep rooted, we have to start these dialogues. And that's why I say, when a discussion happens regarding a film coming out, where how a woman is looked at, when a song comes out, where the way a woman has been described and talking about consent, and when people are having a dialogue, discussing, calling it out. I mean, though a lot of people will say, "Arey yaar, sab kuch kya criticize karoge? These are just form of art." No, it's important. Everything is a part
absolutely.
of this fight and struggle. That will not end up making people saints, but the thing is, it will only add to this discussion. And it is important to have the discussion.
That is true. And you are known for playing such fierce and feisty characters in most of the movies or web series that you've done. So, would you want to say that you are very similar to the characters that you play and that you resonate to them a lot?
I won't say I'm similar, but in fact, I would say that my characters are way stronger than how I am, like what I
Mm-hmm.
am. In fact, like they're very different from me. But the fact that I have taken inspirations from them,
Mm-hmm.
playing certain characters have made me feel that wow, this is how it feels to actually be this person. I'm not this person. I'm playing a character. Okay, and it also has made me understand my own privilege. Like, say, for example, playing a sex worker in Tikli and Lakshmi Bomb was constantly being abused by the police, by the customers, because sex work is illegal. But once you're in the racket, how will you get out of it? The society itself makes you, like, corners you, that you cannot, like, it's impossible for you to get out. But at the same time, you are also, like, exploited by the same society. So I just felt that I'm so privileged. I am protected. I'm educated. I've been provided all these opportunities so that today I can play a character like this on screen. Yeah. So this is also, it just makes me feel that I should be more responsible. And I should do my bit, whatever I can do, whatever little, like, I can do from my end. So even, like, I have played, I did this web series last year called Karkrog. It's on Z5, where I play a breast cancer survivor. Even it was very intense, and I tend to, like, go very, like, deep in the whole process, while preparing for the character. And I was just only feeling that I am fit and I'm healthy, touch wood, as of now. And I'm just playing a character of this girl who went through, like like such a like such a big health crisis. Yeah. So I feel that these characters are coming to me for a certain reason, and not just because, like, I do decent work as an actor, I'm a decent performer. I think it comes to me for a reason. It also makes me think about the privileges that I have, and I take inspirations from them, that I am not so strong like her, but I can try, I can try a bit. So yeah, I'm just only thankful that, these characters came to me, like, became a part of my journey and made me think.
So, such strong characters, such intense roles, what makes you take them up? As in, how do you approach them? Sometimes, as you said, working as a sex worker in a movie, it might have been challenging to try to fit into that role, understand the challenges that a potential sex worker might face in a country like India where it is stigmatized. How did you approach it? How did you try to fit in? And what would you want to change about the way that the industry or our country works?
See, firstly, we actors, like, we don't get a lot of options to choose from. Okay. Especially if you don't have a godfather, if you have not been a Miss India contestant, and etc., etc. So, but whatever choice I get, I try to choose the best from whatever I get offered. Okay. I had to, uh, audition for all these roles, and when I was chosen for Tikli and Lakshmibam, I had read the book, and I was very moved by this character, the strength of her. She was an absolute rebel, and there was no, like, it was like just a black and white character. Like, she had no, like, literally no grace in her, like that, apart from the fact that she loved spending. That also, she also had her reasons, because she has never seen money in life that makes her spend a lot. But the fact that she stands up for herself, and the whole idea of, sex workers, and the whole idea of sex work and morality, it's been looked at in a very stereotype way in our society. Okay. So a sex worker can definitely have her morality in her role, at its own place. If she wants, does she want, you to do whatever you want with her just because you paid money to her? That was the whole question. Even when people watch the film, there was a point she attacks a customer because he crosses a certain limit. So everybody's like, "Arey, why is she attacking? She's a sex worker. He paid her. So you paid her, so you'll do whatever the hell you want." These are the dialogues which the film tried to, start. Yeah.
About
Like,
consent.
yeah, exactly, about consent. And the thing is, I did not look at this character as a sex worker and played like a sex worker, because, see, there are no typical characteristics of a person based on the profession. Yeah, Like, say, a doctor can walk in a certain way, talk in a certain way, and in a similar manner, say, um, a, a chauffeur can also talk and walk in the same way. You don't
Mm-hmm.
define body language like that. Of course, when she is working as a sex worker, she's standing on the road, obviously she will have a body language because she's selling that at the point. That's her job. But I tried to play Tikli as a girl, like as any other girl who has her own liking for a certain movie star, who, like, who loves drinking Old Monk, and she's funny. She, like, she cracks random PJs. Okay, she loses her shit very fast if she feels that something is wrong is happening. Okay, it's just that the only difference is she is a sex worker. That's her job. I tried to look at her characteristics in the script and in the book, and I tried focusing on them more than, like, the typical nature of the profession that which have been portrayed in films and several other projects in the mainstream business.
That makes sense. And you are pretty famous for your role as Tikli. And I will definitely try to watch the movie soon. And from what you've
Yeah,
told me,
do.
it seems very exciting. So, as an actor, how exactly do you think the gender discrimination or sexism in the film industry works? What do you have to say about that?
Um, See, it's a really wide topic. I mean, so if I have to really talk about the gender discrimination, see, I have personally not faced gender discrimination as such, because the people I have worked with, the projects I have worked on, uh, it's a very different side of the industry. Like, I started working in Mumbai as a theater actor. So there, forget about gender discrimination. There is not much of a hierarchy itself. Like, we would call our directors by their name and not sir. Like in fact, I have worked with Makran sir, Makran Deshpande, and he would say that don't call me sir. But I was like, I cannot, I cannot, like, stop myself from calling you sir. Just let me call sir. The thing is, it's like an exchange of energies between artists. So the discrimination, well, I never felt the discrimination. And the theater community is full of very strong-minded women. So discrimination cannot exist so easily. And
So
when I
how?
started working,
Yeah, go on.
yes.
No, I was just
So yeah,
asking, like, trying to understand how your journey from a theater artist to an actor happened.
see, I have always been acting since I was in college. I was acting in a Bengali play in Calcutta, and I was also working as a model. And then when I decided to move to Mumbai, I started working in the theater. Like, I got into the theater scene. I started working in different theater productions, and of course, I aspired to work in films. And that's when stories by Rabindranath Tagore happened by Anurag Basu, and then slowly I started getting other work, other auditions I was being called for. So yeah, that's how Tikli and Lakshmi Vam happened. I really never planned that I want to work first. I want to work in theater and then switch to films. I never planned it. I just Everything happened and I just went with the flow, and I just made the decisions depending on the fact that at that point of time, these are the options I have. What's the best? Which is more challenging for me as an actor, which is more creatively satisfying for me as an actor.
Don't you think sexism is a pan-profession problem?
Yeah, it is a problem in general everywhere, but I think it's getting better. It's definitely getting better. The fact that the moment the people who are like putting money, in projects, if they start looking at protagonists as women, then of course it will change. Like, say for example, a film like Razi, it made crores. It can, like, it is a big statement, I would say, because with a female lead in it, it's a story of a woman, and like there is no so-called quote-unquote hero as such, which we always feel that only a hero can make 100 crores. So it says a lot. Like, say for example, a film that released like Thappad, with Taapsee. So this is the mainstream scene. So the moment mainstream business and the mainstream scene starts changing, it will definitely, like, make an impact all over, like as an industry overall. Similarly with, I feel there should be more like, women working as music directors, more women working as cinematographers. There are a lot of editors who are women. So the thing is, the moment there more women, like, will start working in different sections, then this whole, like, sexism will slowly fade away. And for that, everyone needs to be we all need to be open with the fact that like, we need more representation.
Great, great. Yeah, absolutely. I think more women step up, more women start contributing, more women are recognized, because I'm sure there are
Yeah.
so many out there that are willing to be recognized and given a chance, especially in film industries, be it producers, directors, script
Yeah.
writers. There are so many women that are coming up. So definitely, definitely. So, uh, what do you have to say to any young or aspiring actor who are scared of joining the industry because of things like casting couch and other inappropriate stigmas, which are very relevant even now?
Uh, I would say that don't be scared of any of these things. They do exist. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but don't be scared and stop yourself from, like, walking towards your dreams. Yeah, just be practical. Now the thing is, I cannot want certain things knowing that these are the kind of people I'm going to face, and and these are the conditions they will put forward for me to get this particular role or get this particular work. I also need to be really practical about it. And the thing is, my approach had been very clear. I am very on the face and professional like that. I will rarely, like, bond with a person so that that person will give me work, or make friendships based on agendas, you know. So, and I personally feel that with this whole Me Too movement coming into the picture, the whole casting couch has, like, it's slowly, I personally would like to believe that it will slowly go away, because the voices are very strong right now. The thing is, people might come and make you feel uh, tempted to achieve something at the cost of this. But the thing
True.
is, in a way, they're questioning our credibilities. They're questioning our like, talent. Then they don't care about talent. And and collectively, if we all put our foot down and say no, the casting couch scene has to go away.
But a lot of times there have been situations where women who have tried to speak up, they are either threatened of their whole career ending, or
Yeah, of course.
directors, or like whoever is exposed online, actors, directors, anybody, they have a lot of political influence, or a huge impact
Yeah,
on the film
absolutely.
industry, and there's a lot of threatening and stigma going around that I will end your career. Things like this, they scare young aspiring actors. Like, I personally know a lot of actors
Absolutely.
given up because of this, because people have approached them in a wrong way. So what is a message you would want to give to such people who are containing themselves from exploring the film industry because of issues like these?
See, I feel that there are, like, predators like these exist, where they exist in our industry, but also there are, like, a lot of these people who are genuine and they just want to do good work. It's a task to figure out who is who, but the thing is, we shouldn't be stopping ourselves from pursuing our dreams, because these people are there to exploit. I I rather not like, you know, this is my personal thing. I rather not taste that success that they sell, you know, in exchange of what they want me to do. I'd rather do my kind of work and keep working. My whole purpose is to act, okay, and that gives me joy. So you make me work in a short film, you make me work in a, like, you know, 500 crore budget film, I will give the same effort. Yeah, I will keep acting till the time I, like, you know, that my heart is beating, I'm alive. Okay. Now the whole idea of success is very relative. So I am not really going crazy to achieve that, which, like, the typical picture that everybody paints, that this is success. This is the epitome of, you know, being the ultimate actor. If you work with this person, if you work under this banner. Yeah. So this is my way of looking at it. I am okay with it not being a part of that whole bullshit, because I know what is going on over there behind the curtains. And it's not only casting couch, okay? There's also a lot of things that goes on. There is a huge thing called favoritism more than casting couch. So that also, like, really questions your, like, you know, your, like, ability to pull off something well. You feel that why they are not favoring me, and you sometimes, you know, we question ourselves, we try too hard to fit into one circle, but the thing is, the exchange of work is happening in that circle. But again, maybe I have to wait a little more, and I might, like, you know, feel like I'm losing hope. But that's where the real fight is, more than pulling off an important or a powerful scene. The real fight is to pull yourself up, like, pull out, like, you know, bring ourselves together and be like, I'm not gonna stop. Because if there are people like these who are not acknowledging my talent, there are people who are ready to acknowledge new talents, and I will try and working, like, I'm working with them. And now see, with internet coming in, with so many web series happening, web films happening, people can collaborate. You can create your own content, and you don't know if that content gets picked up by someone, or it is, like, you know, it becomes like a viral video. Yeah, we don't know. It's very uncertain. So
It is.
the many windows have opened. So now the thing is, few people who are, like, you know, ready to give some people work and opportunity on the basis of casting couch, favoritism, and etc., they can do their own shit. But the thing is, now the industry is not dependent on their decisions, or, you know, it has become really big. And I think this is a great time. I'm not talking about the pandemic time, but generally it's a great time for any creative person to pursue what they, like, you know, what they're good at and what they want to do, because there's so many options right now. Like, at least now young boys and girls, they can think that I want to be an actor, I want to be a dancer. When we were young, it was very limited. You could only act in serials, or only act in big films. And
True.
like, and if you are a main role, then only people know your name. Otherwise, you are side heroes, friends. What are these terms? Now people know actors' names, actresses' names, thanks to internet, thanks to so much of works, thanks to social media. So I
Absolutely.
think people should not feel like, you know, not lose hope.
Very powerful messages that you have given in today's conversation and whatever we have had, Chitrangada.
I'm
Much
glad.
to keep going, and I would just want to wish you best of luck with your project. I
Thank you
hope
so
it
much.
gets back on track as soon as this whole crazy pandemic period gets over. So it has been
Yeah.
great talking to you, and I hope that all our viewers, especially whoever is from our Sakshi side who is viewing this, all the student community that we have, they get a message which they can propagate. And yeah, I want to ask you one last thing. So before ending this, would you want to maybe enact one of your favorite scenes from Tickly and Lakshmi Bobby? Because there have been so many comments on your, like, appreciation comments for your role in the film. So maybe something.
Enact. I don't remember all the dialogues. That's the whole thing. Uh, I can say one line. It's one of my.
Punchlines. Go for it.
So this is like the thing is, she's back home, and she offers Lakshmi a drink. She offers Lakshmi a drink every day. So she is playing with nuts, and she's like doing, and then she offers her a drink. And Lakshmi says that no, my dad passed away because of alcohol, and it was this only old monk. So this was her reply, Tikli's reply. She says, "तुम बोले तो drink बदल देगा मैं." So this is what she says, which I like. Her character was so innocent. It also made me love her so much. So it was like really fun playing that character. But yeah, I cannot really enact anything more than this. Because all my scenes were with Lakshmi, and we improvised every scene so much that me enacting something it won't be fun.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna go watch the movie soon, maybe tonight. So
Sure, whenever.
thank you so much for sharing your journey, your
Thank you.
story, your
Thank you.
memories, your work, and all of it with us. Your insights and sharings are definitely going to go a long way in meaning for our young Rakshans from our Rakshan project when they look at their own lives and try to make meanings from their experiences. So, as you might know, Sakshi, through its Rakshan project, is in the process of engaging with 40 lakh youth in our country to stop child sexual abuse. And we have a very simple maxim, a motto. ना करेंगे ना करने देंगे, हो रहा है तो रोक के रहेंगे, और अगर हुआ है तो बोल के रहेंगे. So that is our motto. And I would like to share about Sakshi's campaign, which is exactly why we're doing this conversation. It's called Make Home a Safe Space. It's a campaign on Keto where the funds go into supporting the survivors of child sexual abuse and domestic violence during the lockdown. So if you could, all of you who's watching, please visit and encourage us to create each Rakshan in each home capable of de-escalating violence and preventing child sexual abuse. I also invite you, Chitrangada, and our viewers to our preview webinar every Sunday, which we conduct. It's a free webinar for anyone who wants to join the movement against child sexual abuse and become a Rakshan. It's a Zoom webinar that we do, a very detailed module on prevention of child sexual abuse. So if any of you want to be a part of it, including you, please do sign in. And finally, I would like to ask you something. Would you identify yourself as a Rakshan?
I would love to. It sounds, it's quite an honor, to be honest. And the fact that you guys did this live session, it's also very sweet, and I'm very humbled and grateful, that you guys included me, because it's a very thoughtful campaign and it's very important. And yeah, you decide whether I'm a Rakshan or not.
I think you definitely are. You're already doing so much by educating young girls. You definitely are a Rakshan.
Yeah, I think everyone who is watching this, they can definitely follow Sakshi's page, so that they are updated with all these webinars that you guys are doing, so that they are in touch with all the activities done by Sakshi. Yeah, please follow the page. I mean, it's great. It's a great thing that these guys are doing.
Great, even what you are doing. I definitely want to learn more about your project. Thank you so much for being a part of this,
Thank
Chitrangada.
you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. You stay well. Take care.